Well, hey guys, thanks for checking out this video. What we hope this video is essentially just something that can help encourage anybody who is a part of a blended family, is kind of weighing out that decision of whether or not a blended family is what is going to be best for them. If you're in that dating engaged phase with kids on both sides, if you're kind of in that place where you're like, this is driving me nuts, and why in the world did I get into this blended family? We hope that this blended family video gives you some encouragement. Our hope is this conversation is real, open, and honest. The reality is, within most churches, there are blended families all across the board, and it's one of the things that for a lot of churches, we don't really talk about it a whole lot. And oftentimes when people think about a church family, we think about a husband, a wife, 2.5 kids, and a dog. And the reality is, for a lot of people, that's just not their reality. And so I got some of my friends here today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you guys, and then we're going to enter into a conversation around the joy, the stress, the good, the bad, the ugly of being a blended family. All right? So you guys introduce yourself.
I'm Chuck Rutledge, and this is my wife, Brittany.
I'm Brittany. We have 4 kids total together. I had Carter from my first marriage, and then Chuck had 2 older kids, Abby and Landon, and then we have Cora together.
Oh, I'll introduce this, I guess. I'm Mallory Flores, and this is my husband, Joey. I don't have any biological children yet, but Joey has Shaylin from his first marriage, and she's 11. So.
Good deal. All right, well, we're just going to dive in. I'm going to say a quick word of prayer, and then we're going to jump into just a good conversation. Jesus, be in our conversation. For those who are in the room, Father, let them speak from their heart, bring healing through the conversation. For those who are watching on the other side of the screen, Jesus, I pray that wherever they're at, wherever they're watching, that you would use this conversation to give them hope in whatever situation they find themselves in. In your name, amen.
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 All right, so first question is, in a blended family, you got kids kind of from different relationships, and you got your own kids in there. How do you set boundaries? We always talk about as parents, we can do this, we can't do that. How do you set those boundaries? And I would imagine there's got to be some tension within communicating, like, well, here are our boundaries, but you go to this other house on the weekends and there's a whole different set of boundaries. So how have you guys navigated the discussion and the reality that boundaries have to be set, but we got to set them kind of in 2 different groups?
Who wants to start?
Well, with us, we've actually had that problem a few times. We'll explain it like, well, that's not how we do it.
Yeah.
And then we go at it like that.
Our situation's a little different though, because we have Carter pretty much full time, and then he just goes to his dad's every other weekend. But then Abby and Landon come to us every other weekend, but are at their mom's full time. So it's easier to set more boundaries with Carter because we have him more.
Yeah.
Even though he might lose some of those boundaries when he goes, and then you have to reteach them when he comes back. And then Abby and Landon have a whole different set of boundaries at their house, and then we try to just keep the same rules when they're at our house.
They're
when they're there.
good at winging it.
Yeah. Abby and Landon are really good at being respectful about
That's good.
what we.
That's good.
Yeah, I would say for us, when Shaylin was younger, it was more of a challenge, just keeping those boundaries. We do a week on, week off schedule. So she's with us for a full week, and then she's with her mom for a full week. And we would kind of use school to kind of keep up with her, like between the teachers, making sure that she was following the rules and stuff like that, and checking in with her throughout the week. It's gotten easier now that she's older because she has a cell phone.
Yeah.
So we check in on her regularly and just kind of remind her of the boundaries, and we try to support each other. So if something's going on at mom's house, we're like, well, that's your mom's rules and her stepdad's rules, and you have to follow those and be respectful, but you have to be respectful of our rules too. So I'd say just checking in on her, even when she's not with us, just to make sure she knows that we support her mom's house too, and her following the rules and being respectful everywhere.
I think a lot of it just boils down to understanding, trying to remember that your way is not the only way.
Yeah.
And you ultimately chose this for them.
Yeah,
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to constantly remind yourself of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So they,
And then just understanding for the child that, we do things differently in each house because we're not there to know exactly what's going on all the time. And that can be confusing for them. So just having grace
Yeah.
in those moments of, you know, when they maybe can do something at one house, like stay up till 9:30, or
Uh-huh.
you know, at the other house it's 9:00, and like, okay, you're past your bedtime, what are you doing? But just having grace in those moments for the child, because it can be confusing turning that on and off.
Yeah. Joe, you said something good in there, that reality that this isn't something that they chose. Like, this is, you know, this is a, you know, the reality of what I was experiencing in my life, and now it's kind of, you know, the hand that you've been dealt as a kid. Two kind of questions here on this is, how have you guys navigated that? Like, that reality of, you know, I'm sure for some people there could be a sense of shame or guilt or regret of going, you know, well, you're not like those other kids, and you've got, you know, a different weekend rhythm, and you're here and you're there, and even though this kid's my kid and I want to spend as much time with my kid, like, there is that separation. How have you guys navigated what I'm sure is kind of a heart tug there to say, I love these kids, they're my kids, I want to spend all the time with them, but knowing, you know, you can't. How have you guys dealt with that in your heart?
It's really hard. Well, at first, how I approached it was, hey, guess what? You're going to get 2 Christmases instead of 1.
Yeah.
You know, and
2 Christmases.
just love them when you got them, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with Shaylin, I've always tried to tell her, like, you have 4 parents, 4 people that love you and caring for you and directing you. And so we've always just tried to make it positive, that it's really a bonus. I'm her bonus mom, you know.
Yeah.
And but then to still listen to her when it's hard for her too.
Yeah.
And because it can be hard for her.
I will say, on the other side of that, when it first started happening of, hey, I'm gonna have to split my time, and especially when they're babies, because I was pregnant with Carter when his dad and I split, so I mean, he's been doing that, but letting go of that, and then when his dad met someone, and I'm like, another woman is gonna be taking care of my kid and my baby. Like, it took me a long time to be at peace with that, when I would send him off in the car and be like, okay, I don't really know what's going to be going on until you get back on Sunday. It's just, it's a struggle. It took lots of prayer and just trusting that God would take care of him while he's gone, and that everything would be okay when he got back. So, but it definitely pulls on your heartstrings.
Yeah.
And every divorce is hard at first, but once you get past, or I guess over the situation, and you can get along, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
Getting rid of that pettiness. That's if I could go back, that would be the one thing I'd cut out, is because it didn't do Shaylin any good. Me being mad at her mom, or feeling whatever way, or thinking that I was better.
I remember Dad fails a lot when I was by myself, getting them on the weekends. Yeah, we're gonna go Six Flags. What you wanna do? You know, that's wrong. But you know, you live and learn, man.
Yeah. Did you guys, when you were entering into that, you know, for us as parents, like, it's natural for us to just want to control. We want to control everything about what our kid does. And you know, Brittany, you say, like, it's one thing to want to control what a teenager does, because you know, like, they can somewhat cognitively, you know, minimally think for themselves. But like, this is an infant, a newborn, a toddler, like, and they're completely dependent on somebody else other than me. How did you, you know, talk about releasing that control? Like, what was the hardest, you know, how'd you manage that? Or like, would you call them every 5 minutes, like, send me a video to make sure they're alive? Like, how did you guys do that?
The hardest thing for me was, I mean, Carter, I couldn't ask him when he got home, like, hey, what'd you do this weekend?
Yeah.
And then sometimes I felt, you know, if I did ask his dad, you don't always know if you're getting the full 100% honest truth. So I still feel that way sometimes. But now at least Carter can come home and he can have a conversation with me and tell me what's going on, and so that makes it a little bit easier. But
and I mean, even with when they do come back, they're protective. They love each side, so they don't want to say anything that's going to hurt the other side. So, you know, just trusting that she's going to be okay even when she's not with us, but not putting that pressure on her to tell us what's going on. But just really, like, leaving it to God to take care of them.
Yeah, that's a great point about them being protective over both.
Not treating your kid like a spy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I always like leave stuff alone unless Carter comes home talking about something that I'm not okay with, and then I can go to a side without him knowing and have that conversation separately.
Yeah.
But and try and you just have to remember not to talk negatively in front of the kids. You don't want to cause tension and think that, oh my gosh, I don't want him to think he's gonna get in trouble. Oh, what if I say the wrong thing, or what if I do this the wrong way, and they're both mad at me, and
or when you, for us, like being heated in that moment, asking those questions in that time, it's never a good idea. Because like it's like, okay, we need to step away and then come back and ask the questions once we're not upset, because that's when the negative things tend to come out.
It really stinks when you have no filter, and you try, and luckily with Mal, she just kind of taught me to look at what I say. There's so many times I'm like, why are you doing that? You sound just like, ooh. I see what you're trying to do there.
Let's talk about transitions. Kids as they grow, they go through different phases. They have big life transitions, where that's starting what preschools we go to, what elementary school district we're in. Things like going through puberty, private school, public school, all those different things. And it's one thing to make those when it's just you and your house, but when you're having to make that with a whole nother potentially a couple of people, how have you guys navigated that communication around those big life transitions that kids go through?
Go ahead.
My kid's got a mullet right now. But it's tough. We talk about it and all. They're gonna do what they're gonna do for sure. But as far as the puberty talk and stuff, we brought it up. But they shy away from it. I don't force it out of them.
And as far as the transitional stuff, it's sad, but when you go through a divorce, all of that's decided within like the court order. So like with me and Carter, like I have primary custody, so I get to make the final decision on like schooling and those kind of things, but I always still discuss it, of course, with his dad. But you kind of have to figure all that stuff out when you're going through the process of a divorce, so that way when you come up to it, you kind of know how it's going to be handled.
I wish ours was like that.
Ours is just a little more challenging because we don't get a lot of input from the other side when it comes to these sorts of things. So a lot of times we're left making the decisions, and then it can lead to some hard conversations.
Because if you're the one who made it, then if something goes wrong,
then we're the ones to blame as well.
Shayla came to us and she wanted to go to private school. That started at the beginning of 5th grade. And I started asking. And I'd send a text message every few weeks. Hey, did you ever decide? Did you ever decide? And then you wouldn't get anything. It's difficult, you happen to be the one to ultimately make a decision that's not going to only impact your household, but another household, and try to help make it as easy for that other household as possible. You're juggling 2 lives.
That's good. You guys have kind of beat around this a little bit, but I want to ask a question on it. Like the idea of, or the reality of, it's just so much is contingent around communication, of being able to, whether it's text message, or whether it's a phone call, whether it's doing the face-to-face in-person thing. Like what communication strategies with the co-parent have you guys seen to be effective?
If you get a phone call, you get a direct answer. If you send a text message, you get a set in stone proof answer. Things change. I mean, that's how people are. I mean, we do it back and forth. It's just easier to get it in a text message, but making a phone call is a lot more direct approach.
We found that texting is easier too, but it can also delay answers.
It's better for he said, she said.
I know, and unfortunately in these types of situations you have dealt with attorneys at some point, so you're kind of guided this direction. And especially when you're not meeting eye to eye with something, a lot of times text messaging is what it goes to.
At first it's hard because you never meet eye to eye. At the beginning of the divorce stage,
Yeah.
it's just, no,
There's
even
still
if,
so much tension between you.
right,
but-
even
yeah.
if you both want the same thing, it's like, oh no, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
You know, so you gotta battle that. It does get easier with time.
How have you guys handled being blindsided? Like when you're like, what? This is happening? Has that happened? And how, if it has
All the
happened,
time.
what do you do when it happens?
You kind of
I-
expect a lot.
Well, yes, but I will say I have had times where I've been blindsided and I don't handle it the way I should,
Mhm.
or I've said things that I regret, or was very rude or ugly, and then sometimes if I can be the bigger person, I try to make that really hard phone call and apologize later. When you can both calm down and talk about it,
Yeah.
and you're calm.
Yeah, I mean,
But
we're human.
yes.
Have reactions. Not always proud of them. I tend to be like the little more hot-headed one in the sense of like, oh no, we gotta take care of this right now.
Mhm.
And Joey's more like, we need to sit on this for a minute. So I've had to learn. Learned that from him, to just take a minute, cool down,
Yeah.
and maybe that wasn't.
How we switched roles.
We switched roles as we got older.
Because when I mean, and that's the thing is, I was, especially in the beginning, I was so quick to
Yeah.
Put your foot down.
tell her about me real
Uh,
fast. And luckily Mallory was there to calm me down. And now, as it gets older and it's
I'm
harder,
more
more
invested now.
more strainful on her,
yeah.
I've now had to switch roles and be the one that's like, you know what, let's wait on this, or let's think about the right way to say it.
Yeah.
Because not that, because her feelings are different not different than my feelings, but they come from a different place.
That's good. Yeah.
And then, so me trying to, and then ultimately think about Shaylin and how
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's going to affect her. It's just,
Yeah.
it's hard. And trying to, we want the same thing, but trying to reach that goal the right way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, Chuck's been the same way with me. He calms me down, and
I
Carter's dad actually likes him way better than me, so that helps.
Do you know how hard it is to calm you two down? Bare minutes.
That's awesome. Oh man. Well, obviously, in this dynamic that you have, you like from science side of things, you biologically have a kid who you're trying to parent, mother or father, who biologically is not yours and has the full right to get angry and go, "You're not my real dad," or "You're not my real mom," and be able to kind of let off on the handle of that. And at the same time, how have you guys navigated that? Do you kind of cognitively just go, "I know I'm not your real mom or dad, but I'm going to be the best father figure or mother figure that I can," or do you kind of go, "I'm dad, I'm going to do everything I can to be dad," or "I'm mom, and I'm going to do everything I can to be mom"? Like, how have you navigated that? And you kind of put it in that one category where you're like, "I'm owning this, and it's this is how I'm treating it," or do you go, "It's not fully I am your mom or dad, but I'm going to navigate it in maybe in the best father figure or mother figure that I can possibly"? How have you navigated that?
With Carter, when he was little, he would, just out of reaction say, "Hey, Dad, about a mistake." And one day when he got old enough, I told him, I said, "Look, you got a dad.
Mhm.
He's your dad. I'm gonna be the next best thing."
Yeah, that's good.
And we respect each other a lot. But Carter was what, 6 months old?
He was 7 months old
7
when we
months
met.
when we met.
Yeah.
So that's all he's known is Chuck and I together, and then
Yeah.
going back and forth. But
Yeah.
I've with his kids, Landon is just like him. So Landon has always been like really friendly and like we clicked and hang out good. But Abby, there's nothing wrong with it, but she's a mama's girl through and through, and they remember Chuck and Elizabeth being together.
Yeah.
Carter doesn't remember, so that made it way more difficult when we first started dating, and it still makes it more difficult because Abby, loves her mama.
Yeah.
So I think she still feels sometimes too like I'm gonna hurt my mom's feelings if I get close to somebody else or if I enjoy being around somebody else. And so Abby and I have, I wouldn't say struggled, but we've never been able to form that super
Yeah.
close bond because she's so close,
Yeah.
you know, with her mom.
Yeah.
And I think she's afraid of hurting
Mhm.
somebody's feelings. And she's super quiet, so even if
Yeah.
you try to talk about that, she doesn't want to open up
Mhm.
about. And I never have wanted to push it,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I would say Shaylin said that to me one time when she was younger. She was
Mhm.
like, "You're not my mom." And Joey was there and he stepped in and like, I'll never forget his response because in that moment, like, I mean, my heart was breaking just because it's like, I know I'm not her mom, but I'm trying to do what's best for her. And Joey was like, she's not your mom, but she's an adult and she's your parent and you're going to respect her.
Yeah.
And so, and she wants what's best for you and she loves you. And we've always just tried to use the term like parent
Yeah.
in our
that's
house. So we're like, you have 4 parents, you're going to respect all of your parents. And I know it's a big deal for me that Shayla never felt like a half anywhere that she was.
Yeah.
So I feel like she needs a mom and dad figure in both places, and that's how she's going to thrive. So even though I'm not her mom, I'm going to treat her as close to my biological child as I can.
We're a team. Like everything, one of us. I mean,
Mhm.
we're trying to say what we want is we're together on it.
Yeah, we try to stay united on those
I mean,
things.
it's not easy because not only are you dealing with 2 different households, you're dealing with 4 different backgrounds.
Mhm.
She wasn't raised how I was raised, so us having to figure out how to come together and then hopefully they're doing the same thing. It's
That was definitely a struggle for us because I didn't have near as many rules as she's got. I grew up, so I'm learning along with the kids. You know, I'm telling them it's not that bad. Just try it one
You're
time.
right, I have 2 kids.
I mean, because we both pretty much grew up with 2 Christmases too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't come from a divorced family, so
Yeah.
that was a challenge within itself.
Mhm.
Mine happened so late in life.
Yeah.
Because you were 16, so.
Yeah. Let's talk about, when you're trying to do the whole blended family thing and you're navigating that, we obviously are able to see things that we're doing with our kids through our eyes, but how do you think your kids view being part of a blended family from their perspective? Like just based off of whether it's conversations you've had around it, what you see based off of their behaviors, like how do you think they see the reality that they're a part of a blended family?
I think it depends on the day.
Yeah.
Well, like we just had a conversation with Shaylin, going from public school to private
Mhm.
school. It's a whole different beast, and I think for the first time she has noticed how much effort she has to put in to
Yeah.
succeed at school, and seeing the difference in having us who have like almost 9 to 5 job
Mhm.
kind of versus parents that sometimes work nights and weekends. It's more difficult.
Yeah.
Different places.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a new challenge for her
Mhm.
each place because we're home in the evenings and, at her mom's house, they're not there to help her in the
Yeah.
evenings. So I think those are really hard challenges for her and she doesn't know how to navigate it. She's only 11, she shouldn't have to either.
Yeah.
That's kind of still our responsibility. And so then you do have to have those tough, conversations or make tough decisions based on what's going to be best for the child. And it's so hard to know.
So
Mhm.
I'm more guessing the way to answer your question is it depends on what their age is, and
Yeah.
because I mean the challenges are going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And they go through phases one after another.
Yeah.
They go through phases where they're like, hey, I'd rather be like, you ever feel like they're like, this 6 weeks, I'd rather be at
Dad, I wanna
wife's
live with
house, and then the other house, I'd rather be here.
Mhm. And like she said, sometimes it depends on what's happening at the other house too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they just had a great weekend and they went and did all this stuff, sometimes
Got
they're
a
like,
puppy.
yeah, like, ooh, I want to be over here. But if it was like they got in trouble or they had more rules or couldn't do what they wanted, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't want to be here.
Yep.
And it's hard because, I don't know, when you try to have that conversation, and Carter struggles. Carter actually did decent
Mhm.
until Cora came into the picture because
Yeah.
then we have one child that's with us 24/7 and he's like, well, that's not fair.
Yeah.
How come she can stay here all the time and I have to
Mhm.
go here and miss out on things
Mhm.
while she's here and getting to do everything? So that became a new struggle when we added a new child to the mix too.
Yeah.
And I'd say we saw that with Shaylin too, because she has a brother with her mom, and there was a lot of changes
Yeah.
there too when they had a child that was with them all the time.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it causes jealousy
It does.
and having to navigate that. I mean, each stage, if they feel like, I remember going to like a manipulation stage where she felt like she liked having two houses because she could
Yeah.
kind of make it benefit herself. But then
Mhm.
once we got smarter than her, she was like, maybe I don't like this so much.
Well, it's,
Now I get double the consequences.
Yeah.
it's almost more of a break to come over there because she gets
Mhm.
to be an only child in our
Yeah.
house. I'll tell you, it'd be real easy. The other household like send over a syllabus of what happens over there.
Just trade back and forth so you can compare.
Body cam footage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
You just watch it before they come to your house. Okay, now. it's
Yeah,
just
we
going
got it.
Well, it was opposite
Stick
with
and go for
Abby
a
and
while.
Landon too, because Abby and Landon, when they were at their moms before, they were the only two and could kind of.
Mhm.
But then when they came to our house, I had Carter and then Cora, so it was more chaos. Where we can't just come over here and like chill and.
Uh-huh.
But now their mom just had another baby, 2 years ago, so now they're experiencing it at
Yep.
both
Yeah,
houses.
they're
And
Yeah.
they're older now.
Yeah, and they're older too.
Man, your kid's about to take a car.
Well, you mentioned it from the kids side of things, and this may be already a little bit of a deeper question here. We talked about the kids, sometimes experiencing jealousy. What about from you guys' side? Is that ever something that you struggle with, of being like jealous of the experience they're having here, or jealous of the fact that they like, it may seem like, or they even verbalize it, that they like being there? I know, one of the things that we have, and this is what we're actually talking about this week at church, is like, for us, one of the things we're most guilty of is like comparison. And we're so quick to compare ourselves with like other parents, like who have other kids who are outside of the house. But man, you guys kind of have it where it's like, you're also comparing yourself against people who are parenting your kids. And so that's a whole different dynamic. Like how have you walked through that?
There's nothing like when their mama's boyfriend's got a boat going to the lake. And it's like, hey, Dad, you care if we stay here and go to the lake this weekend? And it's like, we have nothing planned. And I'm like,
It's
no, you're coming here.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, no, I don't want them to miss out on having fun, but I don't want to miss out on, because like when we skip one weekend, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks we don't see
3
them.
weeks.
3 weeks we don't
Yeah.
see
And
them.
then you have to try to reschedule and make up time.
Yeah, so I mean it's tough, and that's a decision. Like now that they're older, it's like, all right, look, I'll let you go this weekend, but the next 2 weekends you're coming over here for sure.
Yeah.
You know, you can talk about it more. And man, I was all against kids having cell phones, but it is nice to be able to call them, hey son, how you doing?
Mhm. Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier.
I think with me, I love to have a good time. Like we always, not that we have to have like some grand experience, but I love new experiences.
Mhm.
So from my perspective, I'm thinking we're having a great time, but then she's having just as good of a time or better
Yeah.
doing little to nothing
Yeah.
somewhere else, and that.
It's like I put in all this effort,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
And it wasn't an effort to impress her, but it was an effort to give her experiences because it goes back to how I was raised, things that I didn't get to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's been challenging with Shaylin just because she was the first grandchild
Mhm.
as well. So everybody wants to have these experiences with her. Kid's been to Disney like 12 times already.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm not. So it was when she was younger. It was really hard to even impress her or get a reaction out of her. Like you put
Yeah.
so much effort into things, and then it was like, oh, cool.
Uh-huh.
And it kind of like breaks your heart because
Uh-huh.
The
you
kid
work
wants
those
an
extra.
iPad.
Yeah, well,
Uh-huh.
I worked those extra hours to be able to give you
Yeah.
this, or, so it caused some jealous feelings.
Yeah.
And I think just her getting older, it's gotten easier just because I don't know, you get used to
I think
things.
she's where she wants to have the experience with us.
Oh,
Like, she
yeah.
enjoys our company.
Yeah, and on the other side too,
Yeah.
it's just being around. She just
Yeah.
wants to, it's not about what's the coolest thing I can do now.
Yeah.
She really wants that quality time. But we had to break her for a little while too.
She can care less.
We had to put,
Into,
Yeah.
being the Disneyland parents, or
Mhm.
and just like, okay, we're just going to be happy with just playing card games. And
And that's what we try to remember. Like, we just pray that when the kids are adults, they look back and are like, hey, Chuck and Brittany or Mom and Brittany couldn't take us to all these places, but we did a lot of cool things without having to spend a bunch
Yeah.
of money
Yeah.
and spend a bunch of family time, even though we weren't going to amusement parks
Yeah.
or.
4 kids is expensive.
It's a
I
very
don't care if you're going to Wendy's,
It's really expensive when your kid has caviar taste. I don't know what you
Yeah.
got there
We
from.
went to the movies one time, the whole 8
Yeah.
years we've been together, because we took all 6 of us one time, and it was like $130.
Oh, man.
And we're like, we cannot do this.
No.
And then the odds of 4 kids being good, quiet, watching the movie.
Oh,
Luckily, me and Shaylin always fall asleep, so we don't get it. It's always
there you go.
Yeah, they fell asleep on me one time. I was like, not again.
It's always a good time.
Well, let's talk about another, kind of, hot topic side of things around discipline. It's like, well, at this house, you're getting, time out, or you're gonna whoop him for this, and then you go here and maybe you're not. Like, how have you guys walked through that discipline side of things? Especially from like the punishment of like, you're getting disciplined and like something's either get taken away, or we're not going, you're not allowed to, go out with friends or have, play Fortnite or whatever it may be. How have you navigated that? And, from the communication side, both to the co-parent and to the kids?
Every kid is different, for sure. All of them's punished. Some of them you can whoop, some of them you gotta take their Xbox, some of them take a cell phone. It's different. And like with Carter, I felt like at first, I look at it from my point of view. Like, at first I didn't want another dude whooping my kids, until we got a respect for each other.
Yeah.
And then, and it was the same way with Carter. I'm like, man, I ain't gonna whoop him. I'm gonna call his dad and tell him to whoop him.
Yeah.
But now me and his dad's got, I
They
know he
were-
respects me enough. To
Yeah.
After his
There's some
dad
trust,
accepted, we were together, and we all they gained respect for each other, and his dad and I were in a better place where we weren't fighting all the time. We actually had the conversation with him about, like, if Chuck were to whoop him, and Melissa's like, yeah. But then it's hard because Carter could get in trouble at our house, and then if he's grounded or something, and then he goes over there on the weekend. I used to get upset if his dad, like, if I called and I'm like, hey, can you back me up on this? But I'm like, he hasn't seen him in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to. It's like not a rollover grounding,
Right.
to the environment. So it's like, well, I haven't seen you in,
Yeah,
2
I don't
weeks,
want
so-
him to be like, hey, we can't do anything, but
Yeah,
now I call him and just make him aware of what's going on and ask if he can have a conversation
yeah.
with
Let
him.
more of a verbal, like, address
Right.
it, as opposed to we're gonna
Right.
punish it in person.
Yeah.
I think
That is tough when, like, their mom calls and, hey, you need to whoop them for this. I'm like, I haven't even seen them in a month. I don't even know what
I
they've
can't
done.
imagine.
Yeah,
So it's
Yeah.
tough, but
Yeah.
they do need discipline. Every kid needs discipline.
Yeah.
well, I'd say talking and
Mhm.
showing that united front.
Mhm.
Hey, I'm letting your mom know what you did over
Yeah.
here in school. That way, she knows that she's not going to get away,
Yeah.
or they know that we're not going to get away with it. But Shaylin, I tell you, she is the worst. To me, it's the worst kind of discipline, because I got a whooping as a kid, and I knew, hey, let's not do that again.
Yeah.
That affects her for what, 30 minutes?
Yeah.
She goes
Sounds like
more.
Of course.
Yeah, it might be girl. I think it's
more-
girls.
She can't handle me being disappointed. But
Yeah.
me showing her I'm disappointed breaks
Yeah.
my heart.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would say you're the primary discipline person with Shaylin. Like, even but on both sides, it's Joey that she doesn't want to break his heart.
Yeah.
And for me, I've never laid hands on her just because that was just a boundary I set for myself.
Yeah.
When I came into the picture, I just never felt comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But I've always told her, like, I've always had a conversation with her,
Yeah.
and I still discipline and take away things, or, we have heart-to-hearts
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So I don't want her to think like, oh, I can just get away with things with her.
Yeah.
I think she probably still fears me the most, though, just in the sense of, like, she knows I'm going to find out that it happened, and I'm going to address it.
Yeah.
well, she knows Dad forgets.
Yes, and I don't. I'm like,
I'm
I
blessed
don't
with the
forget.
ADHD.
Yeah.
Boy, it's bad.
yeah.
Well, and that goes back to the point where communication is key, because when the kids get older, they're going to be like, oh, well, they're not going to remember this. Or so if you're not communicating between
Yeah.
households, then
No.
it can cause a big problem.
How have you guys navigated faith? Obviously everybody, if they have a relationship with Jesus or they don't have a relationship with Jesus, even those of us who would say we are following Jesus, your walk with Christ is going to look different than somebody else's. The way you would train a child up to walk with Christ is going to look different than maybe the way they would do it in the household where you're co-parenting. How have you guys navigated that? Whether it's the conversations around faith, or hey, here are our rhythms around what we do with our faith, whether that's, going to church on the weekends, community groups, small groups, youth groups, stuff like that. How have you guys had some of those faith conversations, knowing that maybe those same conversations aren't happening, or may not be happening in the other household?
I would say that's probably one of the main reasons we chose a Christian school, with her getting older, because there's not a lot of consistency between the two houses, especially in the beginning. They really didn't go to church on her mom's side, but now they've started going to church, but it looks completely different than what we've done, and that's okay. I mean, I think the most important thing is we've just always told Shaylin, like, God's going to be the most consistent thing in your life. We can't even be consistent for you because you're going between two houses. So we've always spoke to her about that, and encouraged her to keep that relationship herself, because we can't always be there to do that for her. I mean, we've helped navigate the way, but I would say that's, especially now that she's getting older, it was so important to us to put her in a Christian school, so she has that consistency every day.
I grew up, like, we went to church and stuff like that, but looking at the way they go to church, and I don't see the ins and outs, but what Shaylin says, they're kind of like the church I grew up in. It's, you go on Sunday, and then you go home, you watch football or whatever it is. And until I was an adult and made the choice to come to McDonough Christian, that's where I learned about community groups and small groups and stuff and all that extra. And I think that's where she sees and hopefully, continues to grow in that church camp, things like that. Like I never
We're creating our village.
I didn't know there was church camp and stuff.
I'm trying to create a village for her, because I mean, even as big as Henry County is, so many times, like, Brittany might see her out with her mom somewhere, and Shaylin has that connection with her, and it kind of brings her back to that, or anybody from the church, like, I saw such and such, and it kind of brings her back to that. And so just creating that village for her.
Yeah, all the same things for us. And then we just try to make sure that our kids see us too, like we're involved in community groups. I volunteer with the kids. I try to make sure they're at church, or we're involved with children's ministry, so he can get that there, and just hope that from what he sees with us too, and what we try to instill in him, that he just remembers that even when he's not home, because they don't go to church regularly when he's on the weekends over there either. So
that's what you said. It just kind of, I think that's why I do the things I do with churches, so Shaylin sees that the things she doesn't like isn't just what she's supposed to do.
Right.
It's they're all ways for us to grow together.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I go and help out with camp, and she was like, this year she got robbed of it, but she was excited. She was like, she saw how much fun all the rest of the kids were having, and that I got to be a part of that, and that she wanted to be a part of that with me.
That's awesome.
And some of the stuff, I mean, I've always been around a Christian family, but some of the stuff you don't learn until you're an adult. So you hope now that you know it, you can instill it in your child at a younger age.
Yeah.
And they don't have to learn it when they're, in their 20s.
Well, we're going to use our imagination on this one. If you think about the child who you are not the biological parent of, and imagine them on their 18th birthday. 18th birthday, they write you a thank you note. What are some of the things that you hope they thank you for?
Thank you for your hard work. I don't know. Every time that I could, I spend with them. Yeah.
I don't have that because Shannon's mine, but I hope she thanks me for who I brought into her life to help her through life. Yeah. That I made the right choice, and that we all grew together.
I would say I just hope that she thanks me for being consistent in her life, and for always loving her and trying to treat her as if she is my own child, my own biological child. I tell her all the time, like, you are my child. Because we try not to have that. Like I said, I want her to feel whole, and I hope she says that she felt whole in each home, and not like a half.
Yeah, I would say for me, even though we don't have them full time, but I just hope that they remember that even though I'm not their biological mom, that I try to teach them how to, get through life, and remember how Chuck and I handle things together, and actually watching me with my kids too, and trying to instill the same values into them that I do my own kids, that they will carry through that with them for the rest of their life when they're not with us anymore.
That's good. Well, having been around you guys a little bit and being able to see you do life with, you know, the kids that are yours and the kids that you're co-parenting with, I feel like all of them will at some point turn back and say thank you for showing me what it looks like to be a man or woman of God. Just having been around you guys and seen that happen. So not really a question, but more so, you know, if you were going to give encouragement to somebody who is either struggling as someone who is in a blended family, or they're just starting out, like you guys, you all kind of alluded to, that first year, that first, you know, even like right post divorce, you know, all those things, that's a really hard season. If you were to look back on maybe how you felt as you were navigating that first few years of going through it, what encouragement would you give to somebody who was in that phase of things?
Trying to cut the pettiness.
Yeah.
I would just say, just don't be too hard on yourself or expect that you're going to be perfect at it. I mean, I don't think that there's one answer for any blended family, and every family is different. So you just have to figure out what's best for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just say don't be hard on yourself and just have grace for yourself too.
I would say always try to remember the child in the situation.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, when you're constantly at each other's throats, just remember there's a child. If they're old enough, they're watching, they're listening.
Yeah.
To try to bite your tongue, it's hard, and then also to pick your battles.
Yeah, that's cool.
Try not to get mad at every tiny little thing, and if you have to get mad about the stuff that's going to affect for a long term.
At the beginning of marriage.
Yes.
But I would say I think it's also important to still be honest with the child, and not try to hide them from every little thing, because I think that actually hurts them in the long run.
Yeah.
I know with Shaylin, we've told her, like, you know, we're just not seeing eye to eye with this right now, and being honest with her that it is difficult, and not trying to pretend.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just
Actually
don't
learn
think
how to
it
handle
helps.
conflict.
And see us
learn
come
that
to a
you're real.
resolution
Yeah.
of it, and not. I mean, those things are going to happen,
Yeah.
and they know, they feel the tension, and just being honest, like, but we're going to get through this for you, and we're going to figure it out.
That's good.
I would say, I wouldn't. It almost sounds like sometimes we're promoting divorce in a bad situation, and that's not what it is. It's you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel. If you're miserable, your kids are gonna see it. You know, kids are gonna. I know with my old marriage, the
First marriage.
yeah, the first marriage, we we fussed and fought a lot. We were miserable, and that pours over into the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, we need to stay together for the kids. You know, I never had that growing up, but you know, God works everything out. You just gotta have faith.
Yeah. Well, I think you ultimately chose that person
Right.
for a reason. So if you
Yeah.
can try to remember some of the good qualities that you chose them for originally,
Yeah.
and just know that your kid may have those qualities too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you know, nothing is going to change the reality that is either their mother
Yeah.
or their father, and there's nobody who can replace that.
Right.
And so we're going to do what we can to be able to,
Well,
do what we can there.
That's half of the child. So
Yeah.
if you're saying something bad about them,
Yeah.
and that makes them feel bad.
That's where I came from.
You gotta run with what you brought to the track.
But we even, you know, I even have Joey sometimes say positive things, even though, you know, he's like, well, why do you want me to do that? Because I want to know where you were at that time and where your heart was.
Yeah.
And say those positive things because we need to remember them.
Yeah, it's good.
And it does get easier with time, for sure.
Yeah, it does.
Have patience.
Most
Yeah.
of the time,
Yeah.
I think
Until
you
the
should
next
bring
challenge.
them-
Yeah.
I think they should bring in our
No.
co-parents.
To see what they say.
Just to see. Well, no, I think because I think it'd be constructive
You're
for us to
playing with
know
fire
Okay.
there. Let's-
where.
I would say,
Y'all
Yeah,
can-
well, that's true. I mean, I would kind of like to know the others.
yeah. I would say too, for advice, if you can, to find people that are going through the same thing
Yeah.
you're going through. And it took us
Oh,
a while to find that. And even
Yeah.
if there's people at church that are going through that, they can come to us and
Yeah.
find that.
You hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it helps to have people to vent to or talk
Yeah.
to that know what you're going through, that can pray with you.
Mhm.
it's made it so much easier to have people like that in our lives since we've been going through
And I don't know if it gets easier, but it definitely changes, and it's not always bad.
it. No.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, as you guys have watched and listened in, you've been a fly on the wall through this whole conversation. You know, my prayer, and I know these guys' prayers, that this was encouraging to you, that it met you where you're at, that it hopefully gave you some hope for the future as you move forward. I don't know where you're at, where you're watching this from, but if you are a blended family, know that we love you, and you're always welcome to MCC. These people, you know, they're there pretty much every Sunday, whether or not they're serving or whether or not they're sitting on the front row. You know, them and many other families who are in the same situation. MCC is a place where you can belong, and we hope that if you're not connected, you find a way to get connected, and that this gave you some hope.